Hey, how you doing? It's Laura Evans here from Unleash Your Potential. And today I wanted to talk to you about the three things that I think lead to people being successful in business. Many of you that follow me will know that I am well known for using NLP in coaching and NLP in business. And today I want to talk about the business element. I was running an in-house course last week for one of our corporate clients, our 2-day business diploma, which I run in-house for companies. And it reminded me of some bits and pieces that I thought would be really useful to share with all of you here that follow me on the social media channels. Now, what are the three things that make people successful in business? I'd love you to comment below this video and tell me, for you, what are the three things that make people successful in business? And I would love to know what you think. For me, there are three things. Number one, you must be technically competent at what you do. So back in my days when I was an HR manager, as many of you all know, I was in HR for 14, 15 years. And there was an element to me being successful in business that was about technical competency, which was about Laura needs to be able to do the things she needs to do for her job. And the same will be for you, right? The second part that I think makes people successful in business is their ability to communicate effectively. And a lot of what we do in NLP is all about communication. I'm going to come back to that in a second. The third area that I think helps people be successful in business is what goes on in here and in here. So your beliefs and values, your ability to regulate your emotions, and all of those things. Now, these three things together, I think, help people become successful. And I had a very successful HR career. Go back a bit further, Laura. An HR career, all the way back to when I left uni. I was in the HR profession for a long time, and I noticed some things about other people that helped them to be successful. And if you're joining me live now on the live stream, I'm talking about the three things that help people be successful in business. I'd love you to comment below and let me know what you think they are, for you anyway. But I noticed that people that were successful in business were really good at essentially two things. They were really good at communicating, whether that was one-to-one with people or whether that was one-to-many meetings, presentations. And I noticed successful people were very, very good at that. I also know successful people were great at getting the best out of other people. And that was always done in various different ways. So whether that was done through coaching, whether that was done through being, a great role model, whether that was done because people were great at, getting their message across, I think is always, something I admired in those people. But no one ever really talked about what went on in their head and in their heart, and how people regulated that. I mean, like me, I'm sure you can come up with some examples of leaders you've worked for over the year that you would never, ever, ever want to work for again. I remember a factory manager that I worked with who never listened, who never asked for opinion, who just dictated. It was very much a stand by your bedsies, come in type moment. And he never got the best out of people. They worked around him. And so, like me, you probably have got people in your career to date that you admire and think, yeah, I want to be a bit more like that. And I really don't want to be like that. But you have to find your own way. And there's always this piece that people forget, which is what you're telling yourself. And your beliefs and your values have a huge part to play in that. So Wendy's saying here on the live stream, being able to hear no and take that no and learn from it. Oh, yeah. And that's a tough one, right? I think I got to put my hand up along with a lot of other people. That's a tough one. It's a tough one. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that is something that helps people be successful in business. You take Richard Branson, like he's well known for, knowing his strengths, knowing his limitations, and building teams around him that complement his skill set. So I always think it's really useful to look at how are successful people successful and what is it they do. And it usually boils down to these three things: competent at what they do, competent and skill, great at communication and getting the best out of other people, and that relationship piece. And then there's this piece about what's going on in here. Now, if we look at communication in a little bit more detail, because a lot of people, they look at NLP and they go, oh, someone said the other day, I was running the business course for one of our corporate clients. Someone said to me, oh, it isn't just all woo-woo then, is it? And I was like, no, far from it. We were working, that organization were very much looking at how enhanced communication skills could help their frontline staff better interact with their customers. And so we were looking at their training and the leadership that those people are given, and how NLP can offer that up. And it was some really tangible communication skills that they took away. So, for example, great communicators are great at tailoring the communication to the person that's in front of them. Some of you watching this live stream may have come across the VAK or VAC test, as it is known. But the NLP community evolved it and added a fourth dimension called auditory digital. And so there are now 4 systems that we will talk about in terms of how people prefer to receive information and how to process it. And there's that old saying, isn't there? Not many people in life in general, not just at work, but in life in general, are not really kind of communicating in a way we would desire, as in not really listening, if we're really honest. Most of us are just sat there waiting for our opportunity to speak. And so this focus, therefore, means a lot of our communication is focused on us. What do we want for the communication? What message do we want to get across? And very rarely do many people actually stop to think about the other person. So how do I deliver this message so it lands well with them? Like, are there tweaks I can make so that I can get my message across more effectively? Are there ways in which I can be more influential in the way I communicate? And the answer to all of that is yes, absolutely. And it wasn't until I found NLP that I realized just how you could really take your communication to a whole new level. So if we go back to the example of what we call representational systems, this company I was working with last week were fascinated about how they could use that in a very simple way. It's not complicated. I don't teach anything that's complicated. If it's got to be nice and easy for me to get it right, and to use it right. And so we're talking about how different people have preferences for visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and auditory digital. And some of you watching this live stream will know what that is. But how you communicate to someone that likes to receive information visually is very different to how you would communicate that message to someone that, for example, is auditory digital. Visual people want to see what it is. They want you to show them. You'll hear these kinds of words, visual words used in their language. Auditory digital people just like cut to the chase, give me the facts and the information. And so understanding how people best receive information is really interesting. And that's one of the hacks in NLP about how we help people be more effective at communicating. I remember one of our students, so this is years ago now, said that one of his leaders in his organization had been off on a course, had to come back, and everybody in the team was commenting about how all of a sudden it felt like she got them. And anyway, cut a long story short, what happened was she'd been on a course and had learnt rep systems and had started to tailor her communication to them as individuals. And it had absolutely worked a treat. All of a sudden, people are like, oh my God, I get it. I understand what she wants. And it feels like she's really listening to me. And, what do we all want at work? We all want to feel like we're heard. We all want to feel like we're valued. And some of that is down to how we communicate with people and how we connect with those people. Take a different angle on comms, about mass communication. Many of you watching this video will, like me, I'm sure, have in the past or currently be responsible for communicating to many people. I'll never forget, I once wrote, in my HR days, I wrote a script for a restructure announcement. So for those of you that aren't in HR, so the HR professional that sits behind the scenes will have written the script that the leader will read out. And I listened to this gentleman reading out what I'd written for him to tell everyone. And it suddenly dawned on me that his communication to everybody was all very kinesthetic, because that's my preference. That's what I lead with. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've like completely missed the trick here, because how could I have made that communication more effective so that it landed with everybody in the audience? And again, I'm not, it's all about rep systems, but certainly learning to tailor that communication was one of those things. And it's really easy to do. So if I said, for example, in the announcement, I want you to know that we're here to support you through the process, that would be like a kinesthetic way of saying it. And then I have to think to myself, right, how could I have changed that sentence to make it appeal to more people? So I could have said, for example, by the end of the day, we will have shown you what the new structure looks like. You'll have had an opportunity to discuss that with your line manager. And you'll know by the end of the day whether you're impacted or not. And I want you to know that we're here to support you. In that little sentence, I've now covered all 4 rep systems. So people think that, becoming more flexible in your communication and some of these more advanced language patterns are complicated and take a long time, and they really don't. Some people teach, you have a paragraph of this, paragraph of this, and you haven't got time to do that. So some very, very easy things that you can do to tailor your communication. And so, we were talking about that last week on the corporate course, about how tailoring communication can really make the difference between when you're talking to someone, it feels like you're fitting, as opposed to when you're banging heads and it feels like you're on a different page. And sometimes that's simply down to how you describe things, and where your focus is as the communicator. Is your focus on the receiver, or is the focus on you? As you're watching this video, I'd be really interested. Drop in the comments, what do you think the responsibility is between the speaker and the listener in any communication? So do you think it's 50-50, as in 50% responsibility for the speaker being clear? Sorry. Should have silenced my phone. Sorry, apologies. Should you, or is it, what percentage would you give to the listener in terms of their responsibility to actively listen, to really tune into what's being said? And I think it's a really interesting point, because is it 50-50? Is it 70-30 bias to the speaker or bias to the listener? Like, where would you see that? Now, you see, in NLP, we kind of say, well, do you know what? It's a bit of a moot point, really, to be honest, because if I want to be the best communicator I can be, then I have to assume 100% responsibility. Now, that's hard, right? Because sometimes you'll go to communicate something and it won't land brilliantly. It might not, the message might not land as you'd intended, or someone didn't really hear what you had intended for them to hear, or they've deleted, distorted, and generalized, what you've said. And they've not done that deliberately, by the way. That is part of how the mind processes information. That's for another video. But it's really interesting, because if you actually assume 100% responsibility, regardless of what the reality really is, but if that's your operating principle, that therefore empowers you to change the way you communicate. That empowers you to go, okay, well, it didn't land as I'd intended. How could I have done that differently with that person next time? And, this is a lot of what we talk about in NLP around personal responsibility and taking responsibility in order to get the outcome that you want. Now, I've talked quite a lot already about communication. Let me just flip this over and talk a little bit about mindset and what's going on for your beliefs and your values, like what's important to you. Because every leader in every organization, in fact, every human being on this planet, has a set of beliefs that they hold about themselves. And that will guide their behavior, that will guide their outlook on life. They will also have values. They are, simply put, what's important to you, and therefore what you focus on and what motivate you. And so again, like, what's the impact for us in business when we're working in an environment where it's not aligned to our values? What if you have a host of limiting beliefs that stop you performing at your best? When you come to, so like, let's say presentations, let's use this as an example. A lot of people fear presenting and public speaking. Some people that will be watching me doing this live stream right now going, oh, Laura, I could never do that. I like respect to you. And the truth is that I used to be terrified of public speaking. You know, I'd be the person going to the toilet 10 times before I turned the camera on or stood in front of a stage of people or delivered a training course. And the truth is that until you start doing an audit on what you believe about yourself, it's always going to trip you up. You know, if I have a belief that I'm not a good presenter, then that's not going to help my performance when I present. You know, I mean, there's a rule of thirds in presentations. A third of your audience will love you no matter what you say. A third of your audience will always be on the fence, never completely sold one way or the other. And a third will never be convinced. And so, you know, if I'm running a program in my head that says I'm not very good at presenting, guess which third of my audience get my attention? The third that probably don't want to be there, that will never really be listening to what I'm saying or never truly be sold. And again, you know, in NLP, we have a lot of sayings. And one of them is that you'll always find the information in your environment to back up the story you tell yourself. So if I'm running a program that says I can't do presenting, I'm a rubbish presenter or whatever, and I'm instead of front of an audience, and then guess what? I'm running that program going, because I'm not a good presenter, I can't present, I'm rubbish at presenting, I always get nervous, I always lose my words. Then guess where my focus goes? It goes on all the people in the audience that, you know, are not looking like they're enjoying it. You change the program you run in your head, you change the story you tell yourself, and all of a sudden the world starts to change around you. Then you perform better, then you get better results in your career and in your business. Because actually, you know, like changing your belief is not necessarily going to make you technically competent, as I was talking at the beginning. But you certainly, you know, can set yourself on the right track and use the power of your mindset to help you perform better. So I could talk for hours on this one topic, and I'm going to wrap up because it's lunchtime and some of you will be going back to work shortly. So here's the summary. There are 3 things I think that make people successful in business. 1, the ability to be competent at what you do, technical competence. 2, your ability to communicate effectively, influentially. See, dog agrees. Influentially, and get your message across and tailor it to the listener. Your ability to build effective relationships. I think that's all important. And the third big sector then is what's going on in your mindset and what's going on in terms of the programs that you are running every day. And are they helping you or are they hindering you? So there's some food for thought for today. I'm going to go live every single lunchtime this week in order to share with you some pearls of wisdom and get you thinking. And so we're running a course, an NLP practitioner course on the 7th to the 13th of November. If you are interested in learning some of this stuff around better comms, sorting out your own mindset, your own outlook on things to help you change your thinking, to change your results, then drop us an email, info@unleashyourpotential.org.uk, and we'll gladly tell you all about the course. And I look forward to speaking to you tomorrow.